It's Friday, folks, so you know what that means. Welcome to another Quick Queries Tech Help video brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I'm your instructor, Richard Rost. What's a Quick Queries video? Well, it's a video that contains a bunch of other little videos. Maybe it's a question that didn't merit an entire question or an entire video on itself, but yeah, we're going to just talk about all that kind of stuff today. You ready? Here we go. First off, before we get started with the questions, I just want to mention that I just recently updated my Microsoft Access Developer Network page. So if you are looking for a Microsoft Access tutor, maybe someone to walk you through stuff, beyond what my videos cover, if you need help with your specific database, this is a page that contains a list of consultants, developers, tutors, people that do one-on-one training. Check it out. There's the link. I'll put a link down below. And that's all I'm going to say about that. First up, we have a comment on last week's Quick Queries, number 27, from one of my Platinum members, Donald Blackwell. I mentioned that with the normal printer drivers, you can't print to the edge of the page. But if you want to make a PDF, you can't do it. But Donald taught me something. I love it, love it, love it, love it when you guys teach me something. He says if you switch to a specific printer and use Microsoft Print to PDF, you can set the margins to 0. This is news to me. I never knew this. I love this. So what he's saying is, if you've got, let's say, let's just use my order form here, my invoice. Okay, you got this. And you want to make a PDF out of this and change the background color. That was the question in last week's video. All you have to do, go to Design View. Okay, we're going to go into Page Setup. And then here, Page Setup dialog box. We're going to go to, which one was it under? It's under the Page tab, Use Specific Printer. That means whenever you print this, it's going to go to a specific printer, right? So for this, we're going to pick Microsoft Print to PDF. Hit OK. Now on the print options page, you can set the margins to 0, which you can't do with a typical printer driver because most printers can't print directly to the edge of the page. There are a few that can, like plotters and stuff, but generally you can't. But if the point is you're trying to make an electronic, a file, like a PDF out of this, and you want a full background color, this is how you do it. All right, hit OK. Now you just come in here. The first thing you got to do, though, is you got to make sure that this goes right out to the exact edge of the page. So 8.5, for an 8.5 by 11. Now, just set your background color for each section, right? Click on the report header, go to Format, pick whatever color you want, like this light blue, and then just do the same thing for each of these sections. Right there, and right there. All right, we're going to save it, close it, and open it back up again. And now look. See, it's to the edge of the page. Whoops, I missed. See that? And if you print this as a PDF, all right, publish it. And there we go. I mean, you still got to set the background color of all these different objects, but you get the point. You can print this color right to the edge of the page. And that looks pretty good. So, Donald, thank you very much. And if any of you guys ever find something in my videos where I say, I don't know if you can do it, or you even find me wrong about something, I want to know about it. I am not one of those teachers that I'm going to be like, no, I'm always right. Be quiet, sit down, go to the end of the class. I love learning new things, and I love it, love it, love it when you guys teach me new things. In fact, I think it's a bad day if I don't learn something new. So by all means, please correct me. The only time I have a problem with it is when people get like, they get haughty with me, like, oh, well, this isn't right. But then they end up being wrong. Yes, then I will give it to you. Then I will let you have it. If you correct me and you're wrong, it's like when people like, grammar police try to say, oh, no, it's not this, it's that. Well, no, you're wrong. But no, I love learning new stuff. Next up, Tony in an email says, I have access linked to a SharePoint list for my backend tables. Occasionally, users get negative primary keys, negative IDs, auto numbers, right, when adding records. I've researched the issue, and it seems this happens when Access thinks it's offline. That is correct. I have users check to see if they can browse the internet, and they can. How can I force Access to synchronize with code, and how can I test it for an offline situation? All right, let's address this. Yes, if you have Access linked to SharePoint, and for some reason that link breaks, which can happen, with a momentary loss of internet connection, the best way to handle it is obviously to restart Access, but you can check for that with something like a simple DLookup. Just DLookup a known value in a table. Like on my web server, I've got a table, customers, whatever. I check for connections by just simply DLookuping my own email address from my record, right? I know my customer ID is whatever, 322, whatever. Yes, I know I'm not customer number 1 on my own database. I didn't think to add myself until I already had a bunch of customers. I'm like, I'm not a customer. Anyways, so I just look up that ID. I try to pull in my email address. If it pulls in what it expects to see, it knows we're still connected. If not, you can force Access to relink the table if you really want to. And I do cover that in this video in the extended cut. I show you how to use VBA to relink the table, all the tables in your database. And this is good too if you've got even just a front-end, back-end situation, or you're connecting to SQL Server. If it doesn't see the table, I usually just check on when the database loads, but you can check anytime you want. Anytime they open a form, just check to make sure the table's there, right? So this video's extended cut does cover that. Got a nice email from user Matthias. He sent me a couple of different questions. I'm going to address all 3 of them. He says, first, what are the steps you do before releasing an Access database to the users? In your security basics video, you mentioned some, but perhaps a dedicated, these are the steps you should do before release could be useful. Well, I do have that dedicated video. In fact, I have a whole dedicated seminar to it. And this is that seminar. I walk you through all that stuff step by step, in addition to setting up proper user and group security inside the database, all that stuff. If I had to give you a quick list, I'd say first test all objects in your database. You don't know how many times I've had, students of mine or clients that I was helping with their stuff. They work on something new. They use the customer form and the order form, and they forget to test something as simple as one of the main menu forms. So make sure you test every object in your database. Remove unnecessary objects. If you've got temporary backup forms and lots of stuff in there, get rid of all that. Compile your code, right? Go into your VBA editor, debug, compile. That's an important step because any compile error in there, if you don't test for it first, it'll cause your database to crash. And if they're using an ACCDE file, which is coming up next, then that's a problem too. Disable. What did disable? Is that like dabbling? Disable the navigation pane and optionally the ribbon. I turn the ribbon off. If I'm not making a custom ribbon, which I cover in my Access developer classes, then I will disable the ribbon completely. I want the users to use all of my controls in my forms that I give them. I don't like giving them access to run around in the ribbon, and I even turn off the right-click menus. Choose the appropriate form of record locking. I can't talk today. Lopping? What's record lopping? Is that when you delete the last bunch of records? Whether it's optimistic or pessimistic, I got a whole separate video on this coming out pretty soon. Most of the time, optimistic is fine. That's where the changes don't get saved until you actually commit to the table, and it depends on what you want. Compact and repair, that's a big step. In fact, you should do that weekly, if anything else. Then you're going to split the database. And again, I got whole videos on most of these topics already, so just search my website. I'm not going to put all the links down below. You're going to create an ACCDE, an ACCDE front end for your users so they can't go poking around in your code and in your form design and stuff. Then on each user's machine, you're going to set up a trusted location so that when they get the database and they run it, it works. You're going to have a good backup strategy. That's always important. And then very, very important is train the users how to use the database properly. You don't know how many times I used to go into companies and I'd set them up a beautiful database and all this. And then, of course, up front, I'd try to talk them into some training, More billable hours for me, yes, but it's the most important thing is if you could save people a few minutes a day because they know how to use the software properly, that's saving your company money in the long run. But if your users don't know how to use the database, well, that's a big problem. But those are the basic steps right there. Again, I have videos for all of this stuff. My security seminar covers a lot of this stuff. So that would be my list if I was to put a list together of what, the steps to make sure you check off before releasing a database. Matthias' second question is, how do you release new copies of your database to the users on your network? Well, that's something you can do either very simply or very complicatedly. Simply, you could do it with a simple batch file. Just write a Windows batch file, right? Whatever .bat, and then just copy down the front end from the server every time the user launches it, right? So that they always have a fresh copy. Usually, if your network is fast, that shouldn't take very long. If your front end is, let's say, 50 or 100 megs in size, it should take a second or two. And then every morning when they log into the database, it just pulls down the latest copy of the front end. And then that's the shortcut you give them to open the database, right? So the first thing it does is it copies it down, and then it opens up that new version of the database. That's the simple way to do it. And of course, I have a utility that I built. I call it the Access Updater. What it does is basically the same thing, but it checks to make sure that the new version is actually new before it pulls it down. So it'll actually go out to your server, look and see what the latest. Whoops, someone's beaming in. Hold on. It'll see what the latest version is on the server, and then if it needs to, it'll pull down the changed version. And also, my updater lets you have it run on a timer, so you can have it so that every couple hours or whatever, it'll restart the system and check for updates, all that stuff. And that's good if someone leaves for the day and forgets to shut their machine down. So you can find more information on this one here. Now, as far as if the new version requires data model changes, well, I'm assuming you mean the tables. Now, if you're running on a LAN, okay, if you're running on a multi-user split database network, then you just make changes on the back end, and when the database restarts, it'll see those changes in the tables. If you're talking about a database that is a single database that you're sending out to people so that they have their own copies, then it's a different story. I would still recommend a split database solution, because I would say 9 times out of 10, when you release updates, it's going to be just coding updates or front end updates, forms, reports. The tables don't usually change as much. So if you're sending out a new database, you just send them the front end, say, hey, replace your existing front end with this one, all your data is fine. If not, if you're doing a single database solution, or you have to make changes to the tables in a back end, you can do it. You can either do it with SQL, or you can do it with table defs and record sets and all that stuff. I do cover all of that in my full developer course. That is likely beyond the scope of what I would cover in a TechHelp video, because it is pretty complicated. I mean, you can make basic changes, like just adding a field, that kind of stuff. Like if you forget middle name, you can add that to the customer table with SQL or with some easy code. But as far as making major changes, it's a little bit that's kind of complicated. The other solution that you could do is export the data from their database. Give them an export button, which isn't a bad idea anyways. Give them a button they can click on. It exports all their data into whatever format you like, CSV or text or whatever, or even to another Access database. And then they, install the new version, and then they just re-import their data. You got to be careful with the keys, make sure all your IDs and your relationships match up. But there's a million ways to do it. And finally, question 3, he's got, he's asking, how do you make Access look like a full application and not just an Access database? I actually did a two-part video on this a little while ago, and it's possible to make it look like it's its own standalone application to the non-savvy, non-Access user. All right, real users, real IT people will know it's Access. There's no way to hide it completely, but you can make it. You can hide most of what makes it look like Access using the techniques that I show you in this video. You can set up a custom splash screen. You can maximize stuff in here. There's a lot of tricks you can play. You can't hide it completely, though. People will know. An expert user will just open up the task manager and see msaccess.exe running, and you'll have to at least have the runtime on the machine, so you can't compile it. This is another common question I always get. How can I compile my Access database into a standalone exe? You can't. Not that I know of anyways. If someone else out there has some knowledge that I don't, please learn me, okay? Because you really can't. You can give your Access database to someone, but they either have to have the full version of Access or at least the Access runtime in order to open it. So those are awesome questions, Matthias. Thank you very much for asking them. And if you have any more, send them my way. Yeah, see, I get this all the time, right? Is there a way to make Access look like an app instead of running within Access? So I get this question a lot. Here's another question I get a variation of all the time. I'm curious how you learned how to teach, if there's some formal method you studied. No, not at all. I have zero formal education in education. I've been a performer pretty much my whole life. I learned piano at a young age, and then I was in a rock band from the time I was 16-ish until my early 20s. So that kind of prepared me for, being in front of people and performing, I guess. And then I started my first computer business, building PCs and servicing them and doing that kind of stuff, fixing problems in the 90s. And I was asked all the time, constantly, but hey, who's going to, where do I go to learn how to do all this stuff, like Excel and Word? And after like the 15,000th person asked me that, I decided to offer training. So I did, I opened my first computer training room, which was in the dining room of my house at first. And then that became more popular than the actual PC, servicing part of the business. So then I decided to focus solely on that, opened up my own training center. I had a big spot in a strip mall that could seat like 20, 30 people in it. And I've been doing training ever since. And then, around 2001, 2002, I actually started getting sick of doing the same class over and over again. How many times can you teach Word basics? So I decided to bottle it and record my lessons. And, then I put them online and people liked it. And so here I am. So I have no formal training in training. I love what I do. I think the most important thing, the number one thing, is having passion for what you do. I look forward to getting up every morning and doing this. I love making videos. I love teaching you guys stuff. I love interacting with people, even though it's only online. So you have to love what you do. And if you love teaching people, and if you love, the topic that you're teaching, I love Microsoft Access. I enjoy Excel and Word and all that stuff too. I like it, but Access is what really gives me, that fires my passion. I love getting in there and building databases and stuff like that. So, that's what you do. Love what you do, and the rest will come. It took me many, 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 many years though before I was able to actually make it a full-time job, doing just training. So, yeah, that's answers that one, right? Well, I guess before being passionate about it, you can be passionate about something, but you actually have to know what you're talking about too. I did a lot of contract access development work while I was still doing, training and the service stuff. So I do have, 20 plus years of access experience under my belt, and I have taught things before that I wasn't an expert on. The key there is just to stay one step ahead of the class. And I got some stories about this on my website. Like Photoshop, for example. I did not know much about Photoshop. I used it here and there to touch up a picture, but then I had some people ask me, hey, we got 10 people that we need to train in Photoshop. Okay, sure, I can do it. So I just stayed one step ahead of the class. And the most important thing to know is don't pretend to know anything. If you don't know it, say, we'll cover that in the next lesson. That's why online training is so much better, because I can we'll cover that in lesson 3. And between now and then, I will learn how to do it. So, yeah, okay, I could go on for hours about this. All right, folks, that's going to do it for Quick Queries number 28. Enjoy your weekend. And I hope you learned something today. Live long and prosper, my friends. I'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button right now and give me a like. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel, which is completely free. And make sure you click that bell icon and select all to receive notifications whenever I post a new video. Do you need help with your Microsoft Access project? Whether you need a tutor, a consultant, or a developer to build something for you, check out my Access Developer Network. It's a directory I put together personally of Access experts who can help with your project. Visit my website to learn more. Any links or other resources that I mentioned in the video can be found in the description text below the video. Just click on that Show More link right there. YouTube's pretty good about hiding that, but it's there. Just look for it. Now, if you have not yet tried my free Access Level 1 course, check it out now. It covers all the basics of Microsoft Access, including building forms, queries, reports, tables, all that stuff. It's over 4 hours long. You can find it on my website or my YouTube channel. I'll include a link below you can click on. And did I mention it's completely free? And if you like Level 1, Level 2 is just $1. That's it. And it's free for members of my YouTube channel at any level. Speaking of memberships, if you're interested in joining my channel, you get all kinds of awesome perks. Silver members get access to all of my extended cut TechHelp videos, and there's hundreds of them by now. They also get one free beginner class each month, and yes, those are from my full courses. Gold members get the previous perks, plus access to download all of the sample databases that I build in my TechHelp videos. Plus, you get access to my code vault, where I keep tons of different functions and all kinds of source code that I use. And gold members get one free expert class every month after completing the beginner series. Platinum members get all of the previous perks, plus they get all of my beginner courses, all of them from every subject, and you get one free advanced or developer class every month after finishing the expert series. And you can become a diamond sponsor and have your name listed on the sponsor page on my website. So that's it. Once again, my name is Richard Rost. Thank you for watching this video brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something today. Live long and prosper, my friends. I'll see you next time.